Hello, everyone. Welcome to this True Restoration live stream. I'm Matthew Arthur, joined by Stephen Heiner and Paul Wesner. Thank you to you both for joining me again.
Nice to be here.
Likewise.
Yes, Paul and Stephen have been on the live streams a fair bit actually this year, so it's been useful. Thanks. Today we're going to talk a bit about AI. It's a bit of a hot topic. There's a lot of different, feelings people have, and what we're really going to do in this show is talk about what exactly is AI, how can it be used, etc., and more importantly, what's a Catholic way, what's a Catholic perspective to approach this new emerging technology, of course, from lay people's opinions perspective. So I think what we'll do, I'll kick it over to you first, Stephen, because I know you did some pretty cool show notes here. Did you want to kick us off and actually helping the audience understand what exactly is AI? And Paul, of course, you chime in as well, because I know you've got some expertise.
Yeah, I think I would just start by pointing out that it's a technology. And like all technologies, there are trade-offs. And I think I can start with something that people don't know. I can start with an easy one and then one that people don't normally think of. The easy one is cars. So cars are a technology, and there are trade-offs for cars. And people don't realize the major trade-off for cars is we have increased number of deaths in relation to cars. In the United States alone, there are 40 to 50,000 people killed every year on the road. That is a trade that we as a society have made in order to have the automobile. Is that good? Is that bad? I think most moral theologians would argue that it is a reasonable risk to take based on the benefits of transportation. But nevertheless, the point is that there is a trade-off. No technology comes without trade-offs. So that's one everybody knows. And what happened when the car came in? A bunch of families that owned horses, a bunch of families that fed those horses, the people who were the little sweepers on the streets who made money sweeping the manure, all those people lost jobs. They lost income. And that was another trade-off. So go back even further. People don't tend to realize writing is a technology. And what did writing cost us when we got it? It cost us our memories. It used to be that we had oral tradition and it was passed down. That's how we got the Iliad. That's how we got the Odyssey. These were just repeated over and over. And that's why you see the repetition in the Odyssey and the Iliad, because these were techniques that the bards used to remember where they were in the story, and they would repeat back again. And then some people were walking into the room, so they would get a recap. But that technology was superseded by writing. And when you write, you trust the writing to hold the memory and you outsource it out. Same thing. What did GPS cost us? GPS cost us any sense of direction. Ask people these days, where is this? They don't know. They say, I just go wherever my phone takes me. When I was growing up, we had a map, a giant map book called a Thomas Guide in the car. And when we wanted to go somewhere, we'd flip to the back, which would tell us the street address. Then it would say, it's page 710 A3. And then we'd go there. And then we would figure out our own route to get there. And we'd use this thing to get around. I knew where we were going. I had to memorize that. GPS has come along. I don't know anymore. And that's, made our brains more shallow for that. Whether that's good or bad, that's a different discussion. But the point is, every technology comes with trade-offs. You then get to decide whether you want to engage with that technology or not. And there are some people, I'm sure, who refuse to use GPS. Great. Good for you. You're not subject to whatever. You've got a great sense of direction. I applaud you. I would like to be in the car with you when you're driving. On the other hand, is it evil to accept GPS and now you're part of the New World Order? That's where I would push back, right? Certainly, our information is being sold. Certainly, it's being captured. And for my part, I wouldn't use Waze, for example, which is an Israeli company. I have all my own reasons for why I don't do any business with the Israelis in any way. But there are ways that you can exercise how and what technology you use. So you can use any mapping app you want, but be sure that they are using your information. Are you okay with that? That's part of why it's free. No thing is free, really. So the reason all these apps are free are because you are the product, you are being sold. And AI is just the newest technology. And I would kind of push that over to Paul to sort of parse what we're talking about when we say, what is AI and what are the different types of AI that we're thinking about?
Yeah, thank you, Stephen, for the overview. And let me qualify. I work in IT, but I'm not particularly an AI expert. But definitely have some some hands-on experience and some insights as well. I guess one of the biggest things when I think about AI is, what's the difference between AI and automation, right? We've had automation for a while, whether it was, just looking at like factory-based systems where, you have robots working on stuff, or, in a more IT-based sense, automation, using scripts where you write something out and then it will, a program will run. How does that compare versus AI? Because there's a lot of overlap in usage. But I think where I make the difference is AI is a computer trained on outcomes, whereas an automation is like a rigid program where it's like, when this happens, do this, then when this happens, do this. Whereas, an AI can get the same outcome, but its process is slightly different.
And it depends whether there's ML hooked into it as well. So does it have machine learning so that it can, quote unquote, learn from its mistakes?
And that's a good distinction, because at least a lot of stuff that I'm seeing now is AI is doing something that automation could be doing as well. And then there's a big overlap right now where people could be using an AI LLM as a search engine, where instead of asking Google or whatever search engine, they could be asking an AI model, and that would be querying Google and then giving them curated results. Whether it's, you want to ask, how do I do a formula that does X, Y, and Z in Google Sheets? And if you ask for that in Google, you might go to a forum, whereas a language model would go to that forum and then interpret what the functionality that you want, so that you can plug that function into Google Sheets or Excel. So I think those are some good basic distinctions to be had.
Yeah, that's right. So, like, just to sort of sum it up, it's like you've got automation, which is pre-programmed. This happens, and that happens, and this happens. But a human has kind of hard-coded what it does. Like, I guess, a conveyor belt in a factory. It's not going to go, oh, I didn't fill the ice cream bucket enough, so I'm going to fill it more next time. Rather, the human has to program that. Whereas with AI, you kind of go, hey, you need to fill the ice cream bucket. So maybe it does one round and then it gets either feedback by the human, or it's got another thing that gives feedback and says, hey, didn't hit that line. So then the machine then goes, oh, well, if it didn't fill it up high enough, logic says that I need to fill it up more. So I will keep doing that until the machine gets the feedback, hey, you achieved X result. So I was going to say as well, so that's AI in a bit of a nutshell. There's obviously more to it than that. But at the end of the day, it's a technology. People, the Industrial Revolution, like Stephen mentioned, when cars came in, that was revolutionary. Goodness me, you're going from horses to automobiles. I do want to talk on a little bit here, and I'll throw to you, Paul, for this one first and get Stephen's thoughts. Where do we feel with some people might say, oh, this AI stuff, this is an evil technology. This is another thing towards New World Order, paving the way for Antichrist, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What are you sort of, what do you feel might be behind that? And what would you sort of say to that way of thinking?
I can start with that. I think as traditional Catholics, or, as Catholics, it's kind of interesting because we kind of have the answer and we can work back to it, versus where other people will work forward to it. Because we know, in the Book of Apocalypse, right, that whatever bad stuff will happen, Mark of the Beast, can't buy or sell goods. So we have that idea as something that could come out. So, I mean, certainly a technology such as AI could enable the infrastructure needed to enforce such worldwide policies as you could derive would be needed to implement something in the apocalypse. So I guess it's kind of like that. But then again, we know that a tool can be used for good and a tool can be used for bad. So I think it can be true that this could enable the infrastructure needed for something like that. But at the same time, you can have a good benefit at that from your own use. Like there could be both true at the same time.
I mean, you could say the same thing about the internet. Oh, worldwide connection. You can use this for essentially controlling a new world order. But hey, a lot of Catholics are using the internet to good as well. Stephen, what are your thoughts on the last question?
I'm seeing a comment on the Amish refusing cars. So I live in Pennsylvania, and I actually pass Amish on the road. So there's the double yellow line in America. Normally you can't cross it, but in Pennsylvania you're permitted if there's an Amish carriage in front of you. You're not expected to be 20 cars back, and nobody honks. No, I've never seen anyone get upset. Everyone is fine with the Amish doing that. This is an American idea, and I'm sure it translates into Australia as well, Matthew. From the Australians I've known, that hey, if it doesn't bother me, doesn't bother you in terms of you want to ride horses, that's fine, mate.
Except cyclists on windy roads. Oh, can you stop it? No.
Now, cyclists are a different story, but as far as the Amish and their horses, no problem. And that was a decision they made. Marie Catherine says the Amish discern the effect cars would have on their social and spiritual lives. Well, Marie, if only they were as discerning about theology as they were about cars. So I don't want to give the Amish any kind of theological credit, but I do think that they're on to some things, not just in the natural order. They help put up each other's houses. They're not having 50-year mortgages. And if you look at a study of Amish bank accounts, they just go straight up. They don't spend money on anything. There's hordes and hordes and hordes. But she did make the point earlier, technology and technology culture has deprived us of the ability to conceptualize. And I think that can be true to an extent. What we're seeing a lot now with AI is people making videos. You know, Bishop Sanborn's guilty pleasure is the cat podcast videos. And so this is what AI is being used for. It's not exactly a use case that's going to help us move forward either as a culture. It's just amusement. And I feel like that's a lot of what AI is being used for at the moment, is amusement, because people don't know. But there are so many applications that that are useful when we're talking about AI. And part of that is the destruction of the entry-level job. So Matthew, Paul, I feel like you've had entry-level jobs before. It was many moons ago when I had entry-level jobs. And these were, hey, do this, research this, call this list, do all of this. And the issue is that AI can now easily do that for you. And not only faster, but sometimes better. And the use case I want to offer is we needed to buy a new vehicle at the seminary in the last 2 weeks. And I was tasked to do this with Father Bayer. We went down to the dealership, and on the way I pulled up Grok and I asked about this particular model. It's a hybrid that we wanted. And I said, what is the lowest reasonable offer do you think we can make, given that it's the last day of the month and they want a quota? Grok works through all these things. Are you sure you want a hybrid versus a gas? It created a table for me, looking at the different leverages I could use depending on which models I wanted. It did this in 2 minutes. Sourcing, 30 different articles. I could have hired a human to do that, 100%. A human could not have delivered that result in 2 minutes, much less with a table. So there are use cases there. And then the seminary saved thousands of dollars thanks to Grok in that particular use case. So same thing can be done for, you can tell the AI, please do research on these event venues. We want to host an event for our company. We need to spend this much money and this. And the AI can do that. There's a very famous humorous video on social media some time ago when an AI was doing this research, calling, and the other AI was the receptionist. It was an AI receptionist. And they recognized and said, oh, excuse me, are you an artificial intelligence? Yes, I am too. Okay, would you like to switch to, and they switched to their robot language. So it said, boop, 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 beep, 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 boop, 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 boop. And they concluded, and then you could see the spreadsheet was filled out because they spoke in their little robot language. And these are the sorts of jobs that we want AI to keep for humans, where you just call and you ask for information. These are the inspiring jobs that people dream about. Another one that I experienced in Paris is the metro drivers. This is not to be confused with bus drivers. I had many wonderful experiences with buses. My mom was big on having me ride the bus when I was younger. So in 8th grade, I rode the same bus with pretty much the same bus driver all year. And at the end of the school year, my mom brought a little present. And, I gave the bus driver a hug and we gave him the present. And a bus driver is interacting with his passengers all day. And you can see the sunlight. A metro driver is interacting with nobody and he's driving in the dark all day. That is not an inspiring, uplifting job. And so replacing that with robot technology is not anything I'm going to cry for. And I understand, too, that robots don't need healthcare, robots don't need pensions, and that can help drive the cost down of public transportation in different municipalities. And then those people could potentially get other jobs. That's not a high quality job. So when I'm talking about AI destroying entry-level jobs or even destroying technical jobs like metro driving, I can accept that. Even if I was one of those people, I couldn't suddenly make an argument and say, I really want to hold on to my job where I drive in the dark by myself all day. So I think that's something to consider when we're looking at the use cases of AI right in front of us now. A lot of entry-level jobs are going away. And I've been in the strange position after having counseled, for 20 years, students in different jobs that I've had about what to do. AI is so transforming the culture and the job landscape that it's one of those few times I'm really at a loss to tell people what to do. Even say, well, go study AI. Well, that field is changing all the time. I suppose it might be helpful to talk about what is generative AI versus, when people talk about, well, what is AI? Does anyone want to pick that ball up?
I think Paul will understand that better than I would. So, Paul, you go for it.
Yeah, there's typically two different types of functions of AI when it comes to producing results. The first one, generative AI, which we've spoken about, where it takes some inputs and then will try to produce either an image or it will produce an outcome based off of what it interprets is being asked of it, and which is opposed to a predictive AI, where it will take the inputs and try to forecast or make some future predictions based off of what it's being asked. So generative AI, we're seeing, a lot of it is we're seeing whether it's images, AI music, AI voice acting, AI screen productions. So obviously that's producing a deliverable based off of what it's being prompted.
Yeah, good. Stephen, did you have anything to add to that point?
No, I what Paul is talking about, it's talking about AI writing scripts for movies. Mm-hmm. And in a certain sense, I think nobody can do worse than what we're doing now. The movie trash that has been coming out, give AI a chance. If AI can write better movies than we've been getting, I'm all for it. But the humans have been doing a pretty terrible job with movies for the last 15 years. It's just been superhero nightmares for the last decade.
We could do a full episode on that for sure.
I would need to watch more movies to do that episode. I think I'll leave that to you two.
Well, no, I think that there was a lot of early success in the movie industry, and then the big corporate got behind that when they realized how lucrative it was, especially like Disney and Pixar, et cetera. And instead of corporate fueling innovation, they just tried to cash in on the formula that they found. Whereas whenever you'd find someone who was not tied to that regime with fresh ideas, whatever, good or bad, they could come in and they could create something new. And I think AI and different technologies like Unreal Engine 5, et cetera, are allowing more grassroots producers to produce at the same quality, but because they're not tied to the corporate formula, they're able to experiment more with their creativity and produce it on the same level. So it's giving some more parity. But going back to the entry level job note, it's kind of interesting because AI, a lot of the things that AI is doing for entry level jobs were being automated through scripting and stuff, but AI has just made that process so much faster in terms of implementing it, because not everyone had experts in scripting, and certainly not at like lower level businesses, etc. So AI is making that so much more available, and it's really changing what the entry level looks like across the board, or certainly lowering the headcount needed for entry level positions as well.
I think exactly. I think, look, the thing is, when you had I'm just thinking of an example. Now you've got a lot of self-serve kiosks or self-serve machines at grocery stores and all that, and everyone was like, oh, the cashiers are going to lose their jobs. And I think it's not nice, but it's just the way life works. But it usually opens up another field, because now you've got the technicians that have to fix these machines. You got the design. Like, the thing is,
although there's a cultural problem, Matthew. I don't know if you're experiencing this in Australia, but a lot of the those machines are being closed due to what we call shrinkage in retail, i.e., diversity is helping to shoplift using self-checkout. And enough stores have discovered this that they said, well, the cost savings on those cashiers not needing pensions, maybe we'll pay that so that we don't have people, or shall we say diversity, self-checking out, but not actually checking out. So,
well, and actually, it's a good point you raised there, Stephen, because I was going to kind of, not that particular point, but I was going to say AI, like, I think there's a lot of hype. I think it's excellent and it's getting better. And we know that it's not going to get worse. That's one thing we do know. But if you look at the hype and it's like, it can do this, it can do that, I can tell you right now, someone who's used AI a lot for things, it needs a human to check it. I've seen it pick up on mistakes, even doing research. Where did you get that number? You got me. I kind of made it up. I'm like, yeah, I didn't see a source for that. So
there's a great cartoon where some guy has this hit sewed up here, and they said, what happened? It's like, oh, you're right. It was the liver. It wasn't the kidney, right? This like robot,
Yeah.
Thank you for the correction. It's like, you already took my liver out.
That's right.
But far more dramatic.
And there was and I think that's to raise the point. People might be freaked out by it, maybe because they don't understand it as much. Think of it as like your Microsoft Word, Google. Like, we can more speedily write email, for goodness sake. We can more speedily communicate with people, but you still could do typos. It's not, and that's the same thing with AI, is that it can't replace human thinking entirely. Strategic decisions, goodness me. Like Stephen said, like, you can use it for research, but you got to validate it. Like at work as well, like I'll be doing market research and stuff like that. But gosh, if I put something, up the chain, and then I get questioned on it, and I go, oh no, I don't actually have a source, that was an AI thing. Do you think that's going to wash? Like, heck no. So if I'm going to use it to accelerate things, but I'm going to double check and make sure that before I put it there, I've put a human eye over it to go, yes, this is validated by a source, or this is a reasonable way of thinking, which is what I get paid to do. So I think people are still going to have that, job opportunities there, because I don't think it's going to be able to ever fully replace the human brain, but it's going to be able to replace some things, and it's good to know what could be replaced. I think some things as well, and we might talk about this maybe for the younger people, what we think might be AI-proof careers or jobs.
I just want to make a sidebar comment on what you're talking about, the hype train, Matthew. I mean, I think SoftBank just sold their shares in NVIDIA in order to invest more in OpenAI. There is no possibility that OpenAI can match to its market cap, or where it's being pointed to valuation-wise. It would have to basically like cure cancer, get us to Mars, like, I don't know, start mining on the moon, discover water on the moon. The amount of money that's being invested pointing towards a market capitalization doesn't make any room for OpenAI to be anything other than a generational light bulb type company. And maybe I lack imagination. I just don't see that happening. There is an enormous bubble, particularly in the United States, that's happening now. So we should beware as we're talking about AI. It's going to pop as a bubble. There are going to be, useful things about it, but we should beware of the disaster that's going to cause. There are a number of large United States pension funds that have a significant position in AI companies. A lot of people are going to cry when there's a crash. So that's something to consider.
Yeah. I think as well on that. Oh, so you're going to say something else?
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to. Oh, you go, Paul. You go.
Yeah, sorry about that. I think if you were going to make a case for why AI, is where it is now versus in terms of functionality and bubbleality, I made that word up. This is a presentation that I saw on AI from some people who were involved in creating AI. If you are an AI company, for example, True Restoration's AI company, you have your first version of AI, and you open it up to the public, and then they see what it is, and you're working on version 2, and then you work on it. The version that's available to the public is going to be trailing what you're currently working on. And like we said about how AI is good at these entry-level jobs or repetitive tasks, the argument or the idea they put forward that these AI companies, they're on a newer version of AI, where that version of AI is being used to research AI. So if that can work successfully, then it can kind of snowball, and the version that we have access to is trailing behind because companies, it's still private and a national technology, right? We don't want our political adversaries to have access to the best AI technology, and if I'm a company, I don't want a rival company to have access to it. So there's a little bit of, we don't know what the best capability is right now to be able to accurately judge and evaluate it. And if they were able to successfully have an AI engineer work on developing AI, then obviously you can have 1,000 of those working on it at the same time without needing to sleep. So if it could snowball like that, however dystopian that might seem, then I guess that was like the argument for how AI could become that quantum computing fueled superpower technology.
Yeah, and part of that is we're not pooling any resources. So Russia's got its own thing. The Chinese are doing their own thing. Mm-hmm. And, here in America, we've got 50-year mortgages and maybe 15-year car loans. We're doing our own thing. Very exciting. The idea of AI eating itself, too, I feel that I will shed no tears for is HR. So a lot of people have been pointing to a lot of these ghost job postings. So people have seen these postings go up and then they go through the whole process and people say, oh, we're not hiring, or these have the reason one person has put forward a thesis, which I like, is that these ghost postings have been up to train the AI for these companies to bring a bunch of people through the process, correcting and saying, this is an ideal candidate, this is a bad candidate, teaching the AI this. And these people have been used to train the AI for HR. The reason I don't shed any tears is because nobody says I want to be in HR when I grow up. And none of us who've worked in companies are, love our HR people. They are, they're not, the most awesome people. So I'm fine with automation related to that, though I do obviously concede that there is a human element to making hiring decisions, but having a bit of a laugh as well.
Yeah, that's it. I actually want to highlight this comment by Diego, who says, I'm not very sure about strategic decisions, as in Diego saying, I'm not sure that you can delegate or use AI to make strategic decisions. This is relating to something I said earlier, I think. He continues, up to now, nobody has been able to beat AI in chess, and chess is a strategic decision-making game, isn't it? So it's a really good point, Diego. What AI I've noticed can be extremely good at is when you give it material and you tell it to stay within its parameters. And yes, it can do all this really cool stuff and then could probably process and come up with things better than humans can in that very strict environment, if you will, with those parameters, such as chess. You know the rules, you know how it works, it's how you win. The thing about live, it's a bit more qualitative. So if you're making, let's say, business decisions around what the market wants and stuff, the fact is there might be all this market research on a market, but the sales team that hasn't put publicly available info around customer feedback, AI doesn't have that. So maybe you could put that in, of course, and it could help with that. But then you've also got things, what about your internal capabilities as a company? Da. So there's all these aspects that AI isn't able to actually access. And I think that's one of the reasons why I could sort of struggle. Now, maybe you could say, you could input all that in Yada. I'm sure it would actually help for sure. But I would say that that's probably why it's a lot better at chess and probably could outdo most humans. But a lot of live has a bit more complexity and qualitative aspects than just the rules of chess. Stephen and Paul, I'm not sure if you had any thoughts.
Well, I'm sure Paul
that.
has opinions on this. Immediately, I think about the Kasparov Deep Blue face-offs that happened some years ago. And it's clear that Deep Blue had a lot of help against Kasparov, so it wasn't really a fair fight. But that's sort of proto.
Sorry, Stephen, what is that? I don't even know what that is.
So IBM had a program called Deep Blue, and they put it against Garry Kasparov, who was the world #1 at the time. And I think Kasparov won the first match, but you say machine learning plus other grandmasters. I fully believe that it was not a fair fight with Deep Blue and Kasparov. There's a documentary about it if you want to get nerdy. I don't know, nerdy in chess. I understand that that's a bit of a redundancy, but the point is that when you're talking about AI, and someone else made this point here, chess is finite, it can be cracked. Obviously, there's a question of decisions. So as you get further in a chess match, the permutations get further out. And obviously, it's computational skill. When a grandmaster is looking at the board, he is thinking through so many possibilities. And that's part of what makes them grandmasters, is they can remember positions and they can see this position is, and they know the permutations. For example, let's say a human grandmaster can look at a position on a board and within seconds tell you there's only one position, there's only one move from this position that would save you. They are acting, you could say, like computers, but that's because you could say they've trained their own human intelligence, not artificial intelligence. AI has that advantage of having all of the decisions of all the chess matches ever being poured into it. No grandmaster is capable of that, a la the Matrix, where they get plugged in and, I know Kung Fu. It's like, oh, now I know all of, Magnus, all these other people, they've studied chess games enough that you can show Magnus a position and he'll say, oh, that's the 1967 game between so-and-so and so-and-so. And your brain just explodes. And you think, how does he remember that position? Because that's what he does. That's what he studies all the time. So is it possible for AI to beat humans? Absolutely. It has more access to more information, more processing power. We're not going to have the capability to beat an AI. Now, whether people are interested in that, having AI play AI in chess tournaments, I don't think that that's a really useful use case. But as far as demonstrating the power of an AI, I think it's a fun public relations stunt.
I heard someone as well saying, like, oh, if you had AI sports, they could be extremely good. And then one person made a good point. I can't remember who it was, some person online. But he said, the reason people watch sports is that human element. Will that person make the mistake? Will that person, will they choke under pressure? Like, it's the unpredictability and those human errors, if that makes sense, that make it enjoyable. If it was just machines and just like no one's going to watch it, there's nothing exciting, about it. And I think it's another thing to what Paul mentioned earlier about creativity. Like, you can use AI and say, write me a story on this and this. It is so vanilla. It is so boring. Now, if you kind of go, prompt me this, give me some ideas. Oh, that's an idea. Now that idea's got me thinking. I've now come up with this own idea. Then you work with AI. It's almost like supercharging a brainstorm session, if that makes sense. But yeah, that human element, I think, is just, it's always going to need to be there.
But also the AI models that are likely being, used to play chess against are not trained on chess. So they're trained on languages, and those same AI models can like code really like crazy like coding things. But if you had an AI model trained on chess, you'll probably see different results than just playing like the publicly available ChatGPT model as well. So, and that's kind of what is happening now at like corporate levels is being planned out. Is you'll have a language model that it's the buzzword agentive AI, where you could say, book me a vacation next week or something. And then that language model is going to break down your requests, and then it can query booking.com. It can go out to all these things. But another thing is it can query more specialized AI models as well. Whereas we're typically interfacing with these generalized models, where we're probably going to see a lot more specialized models come into existence where generalized models can come into. So yeah, there's something to throw out there.
And I know we've got other stuff that you want to talk about, Matthew and Paul. I have a live stream with Bishop's Handboard in about 20 minutes, so I have a hard stop in about 10 minutes. But I want to address a couple comments here before we move on with our discussion. One comes back here. The more conservative the Amish, the closer their thought processes to traditional Catholicism. I need to push back on this in a very hard manner. I obviously consider the Amish traditional Catholic in some of their cultural practices. The idea of family-centered, not loving debt, taking care of each other. All of this is great. But even their cultural things, separation from the world, that is not what Catholicism asks us to do. We are not asked to be separated from the world. We're supposed to be in the world, not of it. So even there, culturally, they're wrong. They are sola scriptura, grace alone, don't baptize infants. I mean, the number of theological errors is enormous. So I don't want people to get the impression, oh, aren't the Amish nice? And isn't that great? They have some things in relation to us, but to call them anywhere close to traditional Catholic, I find specious, both in the natural order and almost certainly in the supernatural order. And then there was another question. There was another comment here about what AI can offer you. And I think this is a use case that we're seeing more and more. The goal is to create your new best friend, new spouse, new religion, new God. I think this is an excellent point from Can You Hear Me? The application that is being used a lot now are AI girlfriends. This was previewed in the Blade Runner sequel or reboot, however you want to look at it, in which what is it that the man is wanting? He wants to interact. How was your day? It knows, it asks about you. It gives you that sort of comfort, knowledge. And I'm sure I'm talking to the two married men in this conversation. I'm the non-married person. But
my question is, how much do they cost? No, I'm just kidding.
A lot of those married conversations are very similar. They're part of someone who knows me, who's asking about my day, making me feel heard. That the AI girlfriend is doing some of that heavy lifting. Obviously, it can't offer any of the other things, but as a use case for the so-called, and that's a separate conversation, male loneliness epidemic, there is something here that AI is exploiting big time. There's already, I think, profitable models here. So it keeps going, as it says, your new best friend, your new spouse, new religion, new God. 100%, there is a trail here. But I think what we're trying to point out over and over in this conversation is, as a Catholic, you can discern that. And you can see where things are leading you, and you can make choices about how and when you use AI.
Yeah, I mean, there's always an obligation on the end user, like the internet. You can access so much good material, you can access bad material. You don't just say, oh, the whole internet's bad. It's like, just access the good material. There's a responsibility on you to use it. And just because it can be used for bad, I think you'd have to, for something to be dismissed entirely, it would need to be like a disproportionately amount used for bad, and only a small amount for good. But I don't think you can say that about the internet, and I don't think you can say that about AI either.
Someone, Marie also pointed out that I could have AI say the rosary, and could she get the graces and indulgences? And obviously, joking, not. But I wouldn't be opposed to there being automated voices offering praise to God. I think that there are worse things in the world that we could hear we hear all this horrible music whenever we're in the supermarket. If AI could be programmed to be saying, Hail Mary while I'm in the supermarket, I'd be all for it.
Yeah, I mean, my brother who's using Perplexity, which is a research AI, he kind of just asked AI to only reference like pre-Vatican II, and it concluded that the new popes could certainly not be popes because they're so contradictory to what was taught pre-Vatican II.
I love it. He turned his AI Sede.
Imagine if, like, in the 70s, they had access to, hey, pull up all of the references to theologians talking about a pope falling into heresy or a loss of office, and then they could, instead of having to have insane plot arcs where they travel to libraries and have to sneak scans of them out, from like Canada or so, I don't know. I mean, that would be so, if we had. I mean, obviously, they have the theological mind to then go back to the sources, but just even finding them, like that would have been such a cool application.
Well, I think we should wrap it up. Stephen does have a hard stop. Thanks to both of you for joining. I think it's been a good show, a lot of engagement as well. So thank you very much to everyone who's commented. As always, you can leave more comments in this YouTube link post publication. So even though it's not live, we will look at the comments. If you want another show like this or want us to speak a bit more specifically, also let us know, because there's probably more we could talk about. But just let us know if you're interested.
The Peter Thiel, Palantir conspiracies, etc.
Yes,
we could do a separate show on that.
Yeah, I mean, I need to brush up on that. I'll let you guys talk about that. But Stephen and Paul, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you to the audience. See you next time. Ta.